When your child takes a hit, the world seems to stop for a second. You're watching for the signs, waiting for answers, and trying to navigate a recovery process that often feels like total guesswork. I'm Kaylee Regan, Executive Director of My Concussion Doctor. This is the My Concussion Doctor podcast. We're here to take the mystery out of concussion recovery by asking the real questions about what's actually happening inside the brain and the body. Each week, I'm joined by Dr. Robert Baric, the co-founder of My Concussion Doctor. Together, we're moving past the wait-and-see approach to give you practical, science-backed steps to protect your child's long-term health. Let's get into this week's conversation.
Good morning, everyone. We are here again today with Dr. Robert Baric of My Concussion Doctor. This week, we are talking about what's happening inside the brain after a concussion. Most post-concussion advice focuses on what a child shouldn't do, but without the actual understanding of the underlying biology and what's going on inside the brain, recovery can oftentimes feel very random or quite reactive. So today we're going to look at the physiological shifts that occur immediately after a head hit. We'll discuss why these symptoms are fluctuating, the reality of the brain's energy crisis, and why those first few days of care we say are the most critical for long-term outcomes. So Dr. Baric, let's jump right in. We often talk about, like I said, the immediate hit, but we don't talk about what's actually going on beneath the surface. So can you tell our listeners what is actually happening in the brain immediately after a hit?
So, Kaylee, yes, the brain controls your entire body. Of course, we know that. And your brain weighs 1% of your body, consumes 25% of your calories. So your brain is ravenously eating, using energy to keep everything working. Your heart, your eyes, your endocrine system, your muscles, all of those mechanisms are going on in the brain. And while the brain's using all this energy, of course, it's creating a massive amount of toxins that need to get rid of. So the brain is ravenously eating calories. In addition, it's rapidly making waste, and that waste has to get, otherwise we can get long-term residuals. That's the big complicating factor in a concussion. Anytime you have a head hit, it's not one head hit. These are cumulative. And I use the example of a car. If you have a 12-year-old car, you can walk around and say, oh, there's a ding and there's a dent and there's a cracked windshield and there's a whatever. Same thing happens with your head. These head injuries, small, big, or medium, are cumulative. One adds to the next, which adds to the next, which adds to the next. And yes, even though you may get some symptoms from one and it goes away, there's often long-term residuals at the cellular and metabolic levels that could last for days, weeks, months, years, or lifetimes.
So what in the brain is actually stopping function? And why does that seem to be, a critical window where the brain is in that incredibly fragile state? Why is the brain so vulnerable in those first few hours?
Okay. As I had said, the brain consumes a massive amount of your daily energy, your glucose. And that system basically goes into, it doesn't totally fail, but it doesn't work as well. So the brain is now starving for energy. It's not getting all the energy it needs. And that is why it is so critical as quickly as possible to flip the backup generator on. And the backup generator is ketones. Ketones, the big buzzwords now. We're able to get exogenous ketones, or stuff you consume from the mouth, goes quickly up to the brain. And now the brain cells have this alternate energy system that you're consuming through your mouth. When the glucose system fails, things do not work as well. The brain is constantly trying to keep what they call membrane potentials. They're trying to keep kind of things at different ratios. There's all kinds of pumps in the brain, and those fail when we get that head injury. So it's so critical. Number one is to restore that energy system, to kick on that backup generator during that critical window immediately after that head bump, and really for the first days to even weeks after, while the brain is slowly recovering its glucose energy system.
Yeah, we often use that phrase energy crisis, but it sounds kind of like the brain is literally running out of gas. It doesn't have any fuel to keep running. What does that energy crisis actually mean? Tell us a little bit more about that glucose energy system and why ketones are better.
So, okay, the brain can run on ketones or glucose. The brain is designed to run on both. And our diet gives the brain primarily glucose because that's the foods that we eat. It's very difficult to give the brain ketones just through our diet and lifestyle. Possible, yes, if you're in a fasting state, for especially for 2, 3, 4 days plus, the brain will be all running on ketones. The brain has this unique ability to seamlessly jump back and forth between glucose and ketones. But glucose is the primary source just because that's the foods that we eat. That's the fruits, the vegetables, the sweets, the meats, all that stuff can get into glucose for the brain. When we get a head injury, that system, the mitochondria that create the energy, that system goes into basically a slow mode, a safe mode, a limp mode, where it's not able to, even though the food is there, it's not able to convert that glucose to ATP. So then the cells are not working near their function. Think of it, they're working at 30 or 40%. They're not turned off, but they're not at optimum. And then what happens? Oh, I go to school and I can't manage the electronics. I can't concentrate. I can't manage the light. Why? Because the brain does not have enough energy to process all of that data at the same time.
That is really scary, and especially knowing that the damage continues so much further after the impact. It's not just a one and done event. Like you mentioned, they're cumulative. But tell us a little bit more about that time period after the impact of where damage continues, about how long can damage continue after the impact, say, if you just get one concussion and are still not actively getting treatment and you're still engaging in your regular activities.
Okay, so you hit a bunch of points. Head injuries are cumulative. You have your first one before age 1. You have an 80% likelihood that you fell 3 feet and hit your head on the ground or on the floor or on something, a corner. So your first one starts before your age 1. So if you're on your 10th, you're going to have some effect. If you're on your 8th, you're going to have a different effect, because they're all cumulative. When those energy systems fail, not only are we fail to maintain the membrane potential so the brain can't function at peak performance, nor can it take out the trash. And that is where technology and neuroimaging and neurobiology has really excelled in 2026. Most people are using what they learned in 1970s and 80s. So in 2026, we're seeing that the drains, the trash of the body, the glymphatics, the most toxic waste that the bodies create, is backing up. The trash people go on strike, and when the trash people go on strike and we can't get rid of those toxins, they build up, and that's the long-term residuals. We don't want that ever to back up, and the longer that backs up, there's some researchers that's saying that's almost acting like a plaque, not an Alzheimer's plaque, but basically clogging of the drains of the brain. If the brain can't get rid of the toxins, when you put it under high load, then it can't function as well. You asked the next question of how quickly do we see cellular metabolic changes? And it can be as early as 30 minutes. So the microbiome, the gut, changes rapidly after a traumatic brain injury, after a head bump. Mild, severe, the microbiome changes quickly. There are cells inside the brain within 30 minutes, research has shown, to process or alter in a very suboptimum way. So we're seeing cellular changes within 30 minutes of that head bump.
Wow. So yeah, that critical time window is really important, because there is so many things that are going on inside of our head that we can't necessarily see. Oftentimes why they call TBI the invisible injury, because in that immediate window, right after impact, we're seeing all of that damage occurring behind closed doors. So when we actually uncover that, we're able to see what you're saying, and then it leads into what we see as physical symptoms. So why do headaches, brain fog, nausea, things like that happen? Sometimes right after the injury and sometimes delayed.
So the brain, we're in an energy crisis, and 3 things occur. We become an energy crisis. The brain is not able to drain the glymphatics. And the third leg is we actually get a little bit of swelling. Now, there is a very serious condition when somebody bumps their head called a subdural hematoma. That is to the emergency room. That means we're having a runaway swelling cascade in the brain. That is emergency room 100%. Fortunately, those are extremely rare. But you really get the trifecta of damage. You get the energy crisis, you get the drains backing up, and you get this swelling. And the brain then is not in a good metabolic or energetic state. And as a result, all those simple activities that were so easy to do. I mean, walking and talking, reading, being on a computer, sitting in class, listening, sleeping. The brain cannot manage multiple processes at the same time. And then that's why they're all so difficult. Things that were fine beforehand can now be hugely impactful in individuals' lives. Is that work? Is that home? Is that sleep? Is that attitude? Is that just how the whole body functions as a result of that brain bump?
That's helpful, Dr. Baric. Can you kind of summarize what we talked about for just kind of a better understanding of the biology of the injury?
Sure. Okay. So number one, every head injury is cumulative and it adds to the prior head bumps for your whole life. Rarely to any head bumps are they isolated in the sense of they add. So that's why a very simple one you have to take very seriously. Number two, time is critical. We're seeing cellular changes. We're seeing energy deficit changes. We're seeing changes in the detoxification system, the lymphatic flow within 30 minutes of that head injury. Number three, the best analogy is you have a kitchen fire. Heaven forbid you're cooking something on your stovetop and some grease lights on fire. This is a very small thing. Well, if we can put it out quickly with that fire extinguisher we have in our cabinet, it's a non-issue. But what happens if that fire continues to grow and now a cabinet's on fire and now other things and now more grease and now I have a whole house fire. And again, the quicker we're able to manage it nutritionally, we're able to greatly reduce the long-term residuals. And the long-term residuals are the things that affect not only the individual's life, but the whole family's life.
That's devastating. But thank you for sharing with us a bit of a summary so we can best understand and help our families and be prepared and have our fire extinguisher ready. Thank you again, Dr. Baric, for sharing all of this knowledge with us. We hope that we can continue to educate everyone and help them understand concussions and how to best recover. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Have a great day. Thank you.